Monday night, 7 o'clock, Central Standard Time. Where is it? In a place that used to be a little outcropping in the underneathness of my roof. That's now my podcast studio. And why is it? Because how else could you launch your week into the stratosphere and give you hope to forge ahead no matter what hell comes your way? What could give you more energy and hope and dreams than another Monday night edition of Brad Stine Has Issues? Boy, do I. Wyatt, I believe there's a song. You know, one thing I've noticed is that I can never hear the intro music, White, so I never know when it's over. Well, so I just kind of make it up.
Wow, that's great. I mean, if only there was somebody who was literally watching the whole thing go by and kept telling you when it ended. And then
that person, it does exist, but they've got a spotty track record.
A spotty? I don't think they have a spotty track record of telling you. I think you just have a spotty track record of listening to them.
Well, for those of you who are here for the first time, this is Brad Stine Has Issues, brought to you by Christian Podcast Central, people that like to take podcasts that Christians put together and centralize them. I don't blame them. Who wouldn't? So that's why I'm here. That's why I continue to be here. Plus, you guys supporting me. God bless you. This is Brad Stine Has Issues on God's Comic, where comedy, conservatism, Christianity collide in a cacophony of clarity. Wyatt, we're back. It's Monday. I'm excited. Can you believe that you and I once again have teamed up? Me, father, older man, heart condition, still here, still pumping, trying to keep alive. When I feel like I'm going woozy and I'm about to collapse, somehow I mentally will myself to stay alive. You, a 25-year-old millennial who lives off of cheese pizzas and burritos and works at Lowe's for a very, actually, slave labor, to be perfectly honest. And that's probably demeaning slaves. But Wyatt, you're here, you're with us, you're my son, and a lot of people who have turned it in for the first time. My son is never on camera. He believes it's blasphemy, actually. He believes it steals his soul if he would ever be seen in camera. So he likes to just be a disembodied voice from the ethers. But he's here, he pushes buttons. He is my sort of sidekick. We do some repartee, but he did in fact come from my loins. Wyatt, how are you today, son?
Doing great up until that loins bit again.
Son, do you think I'm never going to not do the loins? The loins have become a standard with our show. And some people tune in just for the loins, and then they hear that and it makes them tired and they go to sleep.
Yeah, those are the weird people that I keep telling you about we need to do something about.
Well, I'm just glad they're there, son, because the numbers don't lie. We are a hit!
Well, part of us is.
Listen, if anybody shows up, we're doing well. I am excited to be with you guys tonight. I've got a great show for you guys tonight. We are going to have a wonderful interview with a friend of mine who happens to be black. Wyatt, I mentioned that he's black. Do you know why I mentioned that?
Because you got tired of mentioning loins?
No, I'm never going to get tired of mentioning loins. Hey, listen, before I go any further, I just had to look. I don't know why, but I had to look just for the heck of it, because I just want to see if someday, somehow, some way, Karin sneaks in, or Benjamin Gregory, he's a tech guy, or Larry Gilbert, he's a tech guy. You'd think they'd know how to circumvent. You'd think they'd know how to be the first one to say hello, but not when Nick Kress, or as we like to call him here on the podcast, St. Nick, beats him to the punch. Wyatt, again, any idea how the man does it?
I mean, I certainly haven't been taking kickbacks from him in exchange for letting him have exclusive access to
Wyatt?
That would be ridiculous, right?
Wyatt, are you on the little payola?
Well, all
is he
I'm
sending
saying
you
is
some
I haven't-
dough-ola?
Look, I'm saying is your check bounced, and I kind of got to make ends meet.
Amen. That's true. My checks do bounce. It gives him the what it feels like to work hard and then have your dreams crushed, and yet to pick yourself up, dust yourself off, get back to work, get back to your buttons, get back to your volume, get back to your side kickerage. I call it side kickerage, Wyatt.
I told you the rebel checks were a bad idea.
I know it. Well, listen, I felt like it was worth it because sometimes, somewhere, somebody's going to need to write a check and they're going to get caught in the rain. How are they going to handle it? Rubber checks. Listen, Nick Kress is number one. I always have to give him the credit. I don't know how he does it. But guess who else is here today? I got to tell you, Dusty Wilhelm is here, always is. James Lyons is here. Brian Todd Seipert, Jaron Dawn. Images by Outlaw. I don't know. That's the new one. Hey, buddy. How are you? John Kalkbrenner. Hello, Brad. He says, love you, brother, says Rob. Live and learn as you should. There's Forrest Bainey. He's here. Karen, I'm waiting for many people to say hi. Hi. Wow, that's sweet. Pam Bond's here from Iowa. I love it when Pam shows up. Why? You know why?
I believe you're going to tell me.
Because Pam is from Iowa. And when she shows up, it makes me feel like there's an area of Iowa paying attention to what's going on in
You didn't
America.
know what Joe Ford either.
Hey, listen, Joe Haynes, you know, he's from Jersey Shore, right? Mm-hmm. You know what that means.
He's from Jersey.
He was raised on pablum and flak jackets. It's Jersey. It's the mafia. Anyways, he's there and he's safe. Tensile Sizemore, bones and notches, Brad, said somebody, and then it vanished. I don't know where it went. Randy Zaker's here. Yay. Barbara Duvall. Hi, Barbara. She always shows up. But Roger Riggle. Hello, Brad and Wyatt from Oklahoma. Yes. Good evening from Cody Craig, Rebecca Daly Dwyer. Images by aortic valve replacement. Oh, okay. Yeah, I got some heart stuff. God's gonna have to do something about that, or he's gonna kill me. We'll see. Howdy, Nick Kress. First again, I see, says Roger Riggle. Yeah, we all see that. Matthew Costa's here. That is your mother's maiden name, so you are part of Costa. I don't know if you're related to Matthew at all. Karen said again with the loins. I think Karen's getting fed up with the loins.
It's not going to stop us.
Earl Shank showed up and he said, hi, Wyatt, the living loin legend. Ha!
For the alliteration, you only made it worse.
I know. Hey, Roger Riggle says, might start calling Wyatt Loin Boy. Oh, and Nick said Brad Sirloinstein. Hello from South Argentina. Argentina's here. Chris Sampson.
In case anybody was wondering, yes, his favorite cut of meat is sirloin.
All right, that's what he was getting. Jester
I
Cable.
didn't get that.
Yeah, well, you should have got.
I thought he was talking more like medieval knight. Sirloin.
Hey, look, Karen says I'm purposely not going to be first. Nope, I'm done. She quit. She's a quitter. That's not what I expected from my girl, Karen Boyd.
I mean, look, when Nick gets you again and again and again, sooner or later...
Hey, Maine's here. I love Maine. If you have a church, bring me in. I want to perform up in Maine. I love it there. Don't be Tom Cotter said, love me some Stine. There you go. That's my man, Kathleen Perranaud. Brad is so funny. Yes, he is. What is the topic tonight? James Sasenya says, what is the topic tonight? Well, topic is a number of things, Wyatt. Lots of things. Sean Frederick's there, too. I had to say hi to her. She shows up every week. God bless her. Pat Ken is here. Is he new, Wyatt? Pat Ken?
Pat Ken? I've never heard of that name before.
Michael Sean Garrett. Yeah. William Jamerson. Hey, William. How are you, buddy? Let's see. Tom Carter. Darlene Renee from North Carolina. Oh, lots of folks saying hi, punching in, saying hello. All right, well, listen, let's get to, there's Paul Liebman. Paul? How you doing, buddy? Let's see. Gene Meeks, love your clips. Keep it up. The country needs you. Yes, they do. They need a lot more than me. That's for dang sure. Why, Wyatt boy?
Yep.
Okay.
Somebody
Florida's here. That's nice to know. Sean Syriac made it. Man, we got lots of folks showed up tonight. That's good news. Well, listen, let's get right to it. I wanted to talk to you guys tonight a little bit about something that happened to me, Wyatt. And it was me talking to an old friend. Who's your oldest friend? I don't mean by age. I mean, what person have you been friends with the longest time in your lifetime? How long has it been?
I don't know what I had for breakfast this morning. You expect me to figure this out
Okay.
off the top of my head?
Never mind. My mistake for trying to ask a
I know
question
lots of people
to
for
my,
lots of periods
to my
of time. I
sidekick.
couldn't
I
tell
made
you
a
that.
mistake by asking a question to my sidekick whose job is to answer questions. So you want to know
what?
why
I answered your question. It may not have been the answer you wanted, but it was an answer.
It was an answer. That's true. Good enough. Listen, I was talking to a friend that I've known probably since 1980. I don't know. Maybe 84, 85, maybe 82. So somebody I've known a long time. He was, when I first knew him, a professional sleight of hand magician. You know, I don't know if you know this about your dad. I was a professional magician at one time, Wyatt.
No.
Yeah. Sleight of hand expert. Yeah. Cards, coins, sponge balls, you name it. I could do it. I invented some magic tricks, ended up in magic books. I mentioned that, son?
Maybe once in a dream?
Yeah. Well, anyways. So just letting you know, that was a former life of mine, a professional close-up magician. And he was one of them. This was in Southern California. And he's somebody I've known for a long time. Now, every year, he used to do something amazing. Every Halloween, he used to build his house. Now, this was a magician, mind you, right? So he knows how to do special effects and whatever. He used to, every year on Halloween, set his house up. And this is in Santa Monica, California, right? So it's not like we're talking about you have a lot of space. The houses are close together, and there's not a lot of room for a lot line because it's California. But he would create a place where you could go into his home, and he created this entire amazing scenario. Or if you went to the front of and it was his house, but he kind of abandoned it and created all the special effects around it. And people would literally wait in line to go to the front of his house. That would have this legend of the sea captain that went to sea, and then he was lost. They never found him, and then his ghost haunts it. And you would walk around his home, look into the windows, and you would see a kid's room with a chalkboard, and suddenly it would begin to write something like from a child, and you would see ghosts literally appear like Haunted Mansion at Disneyland. I mean, it was sophisticated. This wasn't some kind of guy running out with a bloody axe kind of. This was some hardcore special effects. People were like going mind boggled. And he had it for years and years and years. And so I used to go, and I saw only one time did I make it down there and saw what he did, and it got even better and better over the years. But then I moved to Nashville, and so I wasn't able to see it anymore. But he's been a friend, and we would talk and have over the years many, many, many times about sleight of hand, about magic, about stuff. Even with some of my show, The God Experience, which has sleight of hand as special effects to talk about proofs that God is real and exists. I would ask him some ideas and try to get some of his input, because I know these guys that are professionals that can have some great ideas for sleight of hand or some special effects and so forth. So good guy, interesting guy, right? Now, he is very different, though, politically. He is leftist. He'd call himself a progressive, I'm sure. And I think an agnostic. I don't think he's an atheist. He could be, but at least an agnostic, pretty hardcore agnostic. Very much not religious interest whatsoever. And progressive politically. And over the last few years, we've talked about how sad it's been that America has gotten so polarized and so brutally, so much friction between people that used to be able to talk and have conversations. And he would say, it's neat that we could remain friends and be so diametrically opposed to each other ideologically when it comes to political, cultural ideas. And I said to him, look, I I prefer people that disagree because it makes for such a more interesting conversation. I mean, wouldn't you rather talk to somebody that makes you have to figure stuff out in your head and define your ideas and challenge you? I mean, isn't that more interesting for an intellectual? Because I know you are. My son's an intellectual. Him and I have these conversations. We will take a side and try to just defeat the other guys, even if we agree with them, because we enjoy the repartee of intellectual discourse and deductive reasoning and logic and so forth. So wouldn't you prefer somebody that doesn't agree with you, Wyatt, to be in a conversation with or not?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of boring to be talking to an echo chamber.
Echo chamber, it is boring.
Yeah.
And you don't need somebody. If you need, you just talk to yourself if you're not going to have somebody that's going to challenge your beliefs. Well, we... as I've talked to him about my faith as a Christian, right, and a conservative, he has mentioned to me a couple times that his family, his siblings, are Christians. And he was talking about, and here's the reason this came up, by the way. There's a Saturday Night Live. You know Saturday Night Live, right?
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
well, Saturday Night Live, I watched, I believe, if I remember correctly, I'm almost positive, I watched the first episode live, Saturday Night Live, which was in 1975. I saw the first one live as a kid, as a teenager, watching that Saturday Night Live. The first one, George Carlin was on, I'm pretty sure, so I'm almost positive I saw it live. Because it was this new show and everybody's excited, like, what's this going to be about? So I saw the original cast, the original Saturday Night Live. I became friends with a cast member, Victoria Jackson, who I interviewed on one of my podcasts on Stine Has Issues. But he sent me, my friend Eric is his name, sent me a link that there is a new Saturday Night Live character on Saturday Night Live who was on two podcasts talking about his life. He's become this hot new character. And his early influences in comedy. And the biggest influence that he mentioned he was influenced by to get into comedy was, guess who?
You.
Brad Stine. He actually used my name, and that was really odd. Two different interviews, and he said, Brad Stine, and he even knew my albums. He actually talks about memorizing a routine of mine and using it because he was a Christian conservative. Well, I don't think he is either of those anymore. He's definitely not conservative. He's progressive. But he made it a point to say that I was a big influence to him. And I got the clips from the podcast, and I was going to show them to you guys tonight, but I've decided I'm not going to do it. I'm going to save it for next week. So we'll talk about him next week, because I wanted to talk about the idea of what my friend said. He sent me this information. We started talking, and he talked about his siblings being Christians, and it's one of the things that he's kind of, because I talked about how the left has been the most insulting, most intolerant, bigoted people I personally have ever dealt with. There's progressives, it's leftism. These are the ones that say you're not allowed to speak if you have a conservative point of view. We can imprison you. This is what's happened to America. Well, he's one of these guys, and he said, listen, I've had problems with Christianity because my siblings are Christians, and they're hypocrites. And it made me think how many times I have heard this element about Christians thrown upon them, and that is that they are hypocrites. I don't hear people say, I don't like, I'm a baseball fan and I don't like the Yankees because they're hypocrites. Or, I don't like, I don't even know what would be the Moose Lodge because they're all hypocrites. And I don't like Shriners because they're all hypocrites. I don't even hear them say, I don't like Muslims because they're all hypocrites. What I hear them say is, I don't like Christians because they're hypocrites. Why? What's a hypocrite?
Do as I say, not as I do.
Yeah, a hypocrite is somebody that appears to not actually believe or live the life that they say is true, right? So here's the thing that always sort of bothered me about this idea of the moniker hypocrite put upon Christians. I always wondered, well, what do they mean by that? Hypocritical how? Are they people that say they believe in Jesus, but they don't actually believe Jesus is God? Are they people that don't actually believe Jesus was real and died for our sins and came back from the dead? Because most Christians believe all those things. So I'm trying to think, where is the hypocrisy? From what? And the only thing I can conclude is they aren't living the life that they claim they believe in. That's the only thing I can come up with, is that they say, they say they're Christians, but yet I see them lie, or I see them be mean, or I see them be bigoted or intolerant. It isn't Jesus' love. And they, interestingly, in a way, are paying Christianity a compliment. Because they don't even believe in it, they don't even honor it, but somehow the virtues that it subscribes to, they observe as not something these people are doing. So they're basically saying, man, I wish you really were one of these Christians, because they must be really great people, because what they espouse as the way people should behave is amazing and valuable. But you don't do that, so you're a hypocrite. And I'm here to tell you guys, in case you're watching, you're not a Christian, they're not hypocrites. They're not hypocritical because they believe everything they say. They're simply consistent. Every single time a Christian is hypocritical or not behaving like a Christian, he's proving Christianity's premise is true. Because Christianity's premise is everybody is a sinner. Christianity never said, when I become a Christian, I stopped sinning. I just am no longer going to be punished for it by God. So fascinatingly enough, they're actually accusing them of being hypocrites. Kind of proves Christianity is true, because that's exactly what we told you. The reason I joined Jesus wasn't because I was perfect now, or I wanted to join so I could become perfect. It's because I suck at everything, so at least I get a pass because God died for me. What a premise. What do you think about that idea, Wyatt?
I mean, it's classic thing. It's what I've always been told.
Genius? Was it a genius perspective, though? I mean, did you feel from...
Oh, you wanted me to... Okay. You wanted me to wiggle a little, gold keychain in front of your face and said, good job.
That's right.
Give you a C+.
Okay, well, anyways, I just thought it was interesting that people use that as a disparaging comment to Christians, when in fact Christians would agree with them. I am a hypocrite. I do fail. I screw it up all the time. And I think that that's ironic that they don't understand that the whole point of Christianity is God saying, let me cover that for you. Let me fix that for you.
But is that what a hypocritical, though?
What?
Having a belief system that says don't do this and then doing it? Is that hypocritical? Or is hypocritical saying I don't do those things and then you do?
Yeah, maybe.
Isn't that more what hypocritical means?
I think a hypocrite is somebody that doesn't actually believe what they say. They say one thing, but they actually don't believe it. They're sort of using...
Look, if I was in a museum and I saw a painting that had a sign that said, don't touch it, and I touch it, that's not hypocritical. Now, if I said, I won't touch that, I'm an honest person, I don't touch that. And then when nobody's looking, you touch it, that's hypocritical.
Maybe.
Because you're actually saying you're not going to do the thing, and then you do it. But just simply not obeying the rules. Wouldn't that just be called a
lie? Couldn't that be a lie? Or couldn't that be...
you could call it a lie, yeah. But the point is...
I think hypocritical is a much deeper concept, because a hypocrite, I believe, goes to the deeper part of your character. That it's really saying that you are giving the illusion that you believe or act or behave or are committed to a particular ideology or philosophy, but you don't actually believe it or live it or care about it or try and strive to be that. It's all superficial. It's all lip service. This, by the way, is exactly what the left have become. They couldn't be more hypocritical in that they claim to be tolerant, that tolerance is a virtue. They are completely intolerant. They believe that bigotry is wrong. They are absolutely bigots towards people they disagree with. They believe that you shouldn't hate, and they hate people that don't agree with them. They believe that you should be open-minded, and they are the most closed-minded folks, or at least equally closed-minded to anybody else I've ever said. They are literally a hypocritical belief system because it doesn't follow any of the attributes by which they demand others behave in their presence. So I think that we need to understand that everybody's a hypocrite because everybody's fallen, everybody fails, everybody sins, which is exactly what Christianity teaches. Not what leftism teaches. Black Lives Matter doesn't teach that. Critical race theory doesn't teach everybody sins. Actually, it teaches that only white people can be capable, for example, of racism. That's what it teaches. Only white people. Well, then that has nothing to do with Christianity, because Christianity says, no, everybody's failed, everybody's sins, everybody's made a mistake, everybody is equally responsible for their life choices. So there is an impact between how you behave, what you say, what you believe, and what you do actually reveals itself as to what is really true about your belief system. Why I thought today they were going to come out with a Supreme Court decision about Roe v. Wade. I'd heard rumors that it was going to come out, and so I was going to write up a little monologue, because one of the things I want to get to is I'm going to start writing monologues that are more topical, and then I can run them here live for you guys, just kind of like they do on the other TV shows that actually have professionals, people with buttons that know when to push them, people that know if they're the sidekick, they need to answer your questions. Those guys, they have professionals. But I realized that I had actually done my own monologue about the idea of pro-life about 3 years ago, 2019. And so I thought to myself, why don't I pull that out of the archives and show you guys a preview of what my monologues can look like when we do those monologues, like Tucker Carlson does and all the other guys do in the beginning. And let me show you what I thought was going to be an enhanced version of what we were going to find out, that hopefully Roe v. Wade had been overturned. And then I was going to show you this. But since they didn't at this point, let's show you what I was talking about, thinking about, and indicating when it came to the difference between pro-life and pro-choice. And I want you to watch it. Comment about it as it's happening, what you think, if you get some insight from it, and if it makes any sense to you, and especially if you happen to be watching me and you happen to be pro-choice, give me your thoughts about this. But let's show them my monologue on pregnancy. What does it mean? Who and what does it mean to be pregnant? White, if you could.
All right.
Make it happen.
Now.
Hey guys, it's God's comic, Brad Stine, and Brad Stine Has Issues. You know, you've heard about the war on women, the war on drugs, the war on war. But who started this war on really, really short people? And no, I'm not talking about midgets, because that would be a hate crime. I got a question for you, America. Are you old enough to remember when we as a country actually thought it would be helpful to use the same definition of a word as everyone else does? See, part of the reason America is so polarized is we use the same words, but we define them differently. It gets confusing. For example, to a conservative, the word hate means an intense and passionate dislike for someone. But to the progressive, hate means you disagree with me. Subtle difference, huh? Here's another example. Used to be common knowledge that when a woman was pregnant, it meant she was having a baby. I mean, that's why we use the word pregnant. We believe that archaic definition because before the advancement of science and social justice warriors, we noticed that every time a woman was pregnant, eventually a baby appeared like magic. Matter of fact, the definition from Merriam-Webster, and face it, Merriam could be a bit wordy, said that pregnant literally was an adjective defined as a woman or female animal having a child or young developing in the uterus. Consequently, through the years, there's been sometimes a reluctance, depending on the circumstances, to use the word pregnant. Why? Because we know what it means. Thus, we created synonyms to ease that reality to the easily triggered, like the informal, she's in the family way. Preggers, a bun in the oven. Why, she's in the pudding club. Swallowed a watermelon seed. Preggo. Got a joey in the pouch. Knocked up. Clucky. With child. Heavy with child. In a delicate condition. In an interesting condition. Childing. On the way. Gravit. Parturient. Infanticipating. Stort. But my all-time favorite mysterious term for pregnant is expecting. Hey, I'm expecting. Expecting what? A child. Really? I didn't know there were options. If you're expecting a child, let me save you the suspense. That's exactly what you're going to get. It already is a child. As shocking as this might sound, every pregnant human in human history, when delivering a baby's, always ended up with a human. Will miracles never cease? That's why expecting a child is redundant. Expecting would only work as a term if we never knew what we were going to get. Mrs. Johnson, you're the proud mother of a 8-pound, 2-ounce armadillo. Whoa, I wasn't expecting that. By the way, that's the other term we don't need. I'm going to be a mother. No, you are a mother. So I'll tell you what, we'll give you 9 months to get used to the idea. See, even though all humans know being pregnant means having a baby inside of you, ever since Roe v. Wade, we started categorizing babies based on their stage of development. See, every human being starts at the beginning and stops at the end. For example, the developing human individual from the time of implantation to the end of the 8th week after conception is called an embryo. Still a baby, just really short. It's day one of its human life, so it's just getting started. That's what eliminating an embryo on purpose actually is. An attack on short people. And we all used to be that short. Another term for a developing human from usually 2 months after conception to birth is fetus. Still short, getting a little bit bigger. My gosh, if we start eliminating humans arbitrarily because of your prejudice to short people, when does it end? I'm 5'6". I'm short. Is there going to be a time in future where my personhood is suspect simply because I can't dunk a basketball? Or for that matter, reach the top shelf? Of course, progressives are the people who believe women have a right to terminate this short person. Here's what I find historically ironic. You see, years ago, everyone agreed that if any person needed extra protection, it was a baby, since they're vulnerable and completely at your mercy in regards to their safety. So, harming a baby was one of the most egregious crimes you could commit. It was so bad, some people even use it as a disparaging remark directed towards returning Vietnam soldiers. Do you remember that? Some people would actually call them baby killers. Apparently in the 60s, killing babies was still a no-no. Yet, here we are in 2019, and some people of that same political persuasion believe that a woman has the right to kill their baby if they don't want them, so apparently to them, calling someone a baby killer is a compliment. Again, folks, define your terms so I can keep up. I cannot wait for them to explain that concept to God with a straight face. So, just for perspective's sake, guess how many Americans tragically died in 10 years in Vietnam? 58,220. Whew. You know how many babies have been aborted since Roe v. Wade? You ready for this? 45,110,251. All because of this war on short people. So for all you social justice warriors out there, we are excited for you to join us in our quest to stop the carnage on short people and defend their right to personhood so they can be born and begin to administer the payback to our kids that they've inflicted on us. That's what equality means. Let the shorties come out and do some damage. Remember, PC free is equality. This is God's Comic Brad Stine. Put a helmet on. Hey, I hope you enjoyed that. As you know, it is Brad Stine Has Issues, and I was willing to admit it. That's why I went through a C-section and a hemorrhoidectomy. And I didn't even have hemorrhoids. But I figured if that's what it takes to get you to subscribe to my channel, I'll do it. So I did. And I have to go change the Band-Aids. So quickly, hit the notification bell to receive the updates. Watch some of these videos, and I'll be back soon. I just won't be sitting on anything without my little foam ring. Always interested in bringing interesting people to you. I decided to bring somebody on that I've known for quite a few years. It was really interesting to me because this guy actually knew me, I think, before I knew him. I met him at a conservative, I think at CPAC. He walked past me and he said, "Hey, I know your work. I like it." I had seen him, but I didn't know him. And anyways, we got to know each other. His name's Kevin Jackson. He's incredible powerhouse intellect and conservative. He was on Fox and Friends, and was actually on Fox for as a hired what do you call them, personality, I guess, for a while. And then he got in trouble because he used his personality the way he does to speak about some group of folks that they didn't like, and they kind of, I guess, gave him his walking papers. But I like that about him. He's honest, he's truthful, he's unapologetic. And we actually created a tour called the Unapologetically American Tour with him, Tim Wilkins, and myself doing a comedy tour throughout this nation, Unapologetically American. But I wanted to bring him on because he is an anomaly. Unfortunately, shouldn't be that way, but he is. He is a black conservative American patriot, Second Amendment, First Amendment lover. And so he has to come on. We're going to, of course, switch from this section to the double section. So I'll have to take this off and that off, and we'll go to my computer, but so be it. He's a friend. He's a warrior, and he's courageous. And that's why we wanted to bring him on. And I want you to meet him so you can know him and go enjoy his podcast and his appearances, but also to get to used to us together as warriors unite to defend America. So please welcome my friend, Kevin Jackson. Bring him on, Wyatt. All right.
What's up there, Bubba?
There he is. He calls me Bubba, and I let him get away with that because, you know, he's a minority. He can't make a mistake, and I know he's not racist. Can't be racist. He's got that.
Isn't that what they call all the guys from the South, Bubba? I thought I was.
Yeah,
I
think
thought
so.
that was a term of endearment.
I think so. And I'm not even from the South, but once I got here, I lost 2 teeth, 10 points in my IQ, and I got a new name, Bubba. So here I am, brother.
You think you lost IQ, huh?
Yeah. Yeah, maybe you're right. Maybe I gained a point or two based on where I had been. Well, Kevin Jackson, great to have you, buddy. A good friend, a good patriot, a man that I respect and have been able to have the honor of doing some live events with and some other things. But here you are with me, and I hate doing this. I've done a million interviews myself. And they always ask the same questions. Hey, how'd you start out in comedy? Were you the class clown? I'm getting so sick of these idiotic same questions every time. But I also realize that if you're introducing your audience to you and they maybe don't know you, they should have a bit of a background on you. So just quickly summarize what's comfortable with you. What is your DNA? What makes Kevin Jackson tick? What has kind of launched you into the stratosphere of media and the internet? to create the brand and the person that you are in America in 2022?
Well, first of all, I want to say this, Brad, for all the people who don't know me, I hate that you have racist on your program. I mean, that sucks.
Well, I'm trying to fix them. That's why I brought them on. This
Please.
is full immersion therapy, is what I'm trying to give them.
Well, I was going to say, now that they know me, now that you've given at least a bit of an introduction, they are working on their racism. So,
Amen.
Look, anybody that does know my work, and there's probably a couple of them out there from the program that do, they know that I don't like lies. You know, I grew up in a country where people love each other and we get along with each other because of the things that galvanize us to one another, that bring us closer to each other. So I grew up in the country, a little bitty cattle town in Texas called Brady. I grew up on a 25,000 acre cattle ranch. So I was around a bunch of white boys that were into fishing and hunting and farming and ranching. And when I moved to the city, you know, when I went to college in Dallas, you know, everything suddenly became racialized and polarized. And suddenly the same guys I grew up with were considered, you know, racist, redneck, white boys or whatever. And I'm going, no, these are kids that, you know, I grew up, you know, we drank beer together and chased girls and did everything teenage boys do. So it hacked me off. And then as you really get immersed into the political, was that mine or yours? It's kicking off.
I'm still here.
I'm hearing sorry about this. I'm hearing I'm going to delete some stuff because I'm hearing, sorry guys.
It's all right.
There's something on my end that's playing.
Oh, okay.
That's weird. You guys can't hear that?
Well, you know, black guys in technology, they don't mix.
And I'm a technologist. It's just so bizarre. I can't figure out where it's coming from. Oh, here it is. I got it. Sorry about that. Yeah, it was a video just started playing out of nowhere on my PC. So anyway, going back to what I was talking about. So when I got more politically, when I got into the real world, and I'll give you an example of the first thing I was hit with when I became my degrees are in electrical engineering, computer science, and math. And when I graduated and I went to work at my first real job as an electrical engineer, they asked me that I want to be part of the Black Engineers Association. I'm like, what do we do? Do we work in a different environment than the white engineers? And they were, well, no, you know, we just feel like you'd be more comfortable. I go, I'm comfortable as an electrical engineer designing supercomputers. I don't think that I need to make a distinction. So that was like the first little thing that here's the real world coming to get you. And so I was appalled at that. And so it just got worse. And as you know, politically, it's only gotten worse. I was talking to a friend of mine today who's from Poland. And I said, do you guys have these issues? He says, no. We're the only country in the world who's arguing about black and white. And she made the comment, well, Kevin, I think the latest generation doesn't understand it. I'm like, are you kidding? This is the least racist generation of kids ever in the history of America. They don't worry about black and white interracial dating, marriage, nothing. It is so blasé at this point, and yet we still discuss it. And so as far as the tour goes, and you know, Brad, when we originally did the reparations comedy tour, it was again to make fun of the idea of race and this idea that we are so hung up on it. And then now that we're doing the Unapologetically American tour, here's what's happened. We've gone from just kind of making a little fun of race to looking at every single issue, whether it's sexuality. We've got special pronouns for gays. We've got special handling of women because they don't feel, you know, good enough, for, you know, they're not making as much money as us. We've got toxic masculinity. Every single thing that is on your body is now being discussed in some manner that separates you from the masses. And so I said, we've got to do something to bring humanity back to reality and make people understand that, look, we love each other and care about each other because as human beings first, and all the other things are just flavor to the fabric or flavor to the recipe.
Well, but what you're saying, of course, I agree with, and most people do that deal with truth and reality and common sense. But words have meaning; they have power. For example, common sense actually means sense that is common to the masses. Well, that's no longer the case because, as I've said on our show, as you know, whoever controls the words controls the people. So if I can say that common sense is racist, and because people so fear to be considered a racist that they'll allow that acrimonious concept to be placed upon them, that they want to flee that, they literally are becoming ruled by bullies and bigotry. Mm-hmm. But the thing that I think is so important, and I don't know if it's even possible, we were going so far off the rails, but I did a commentary once about the idea of a national conversation. Whenever something happens, there's a big shooting, at the mall, there's border crisis, whatever. We need a national conversation on race. And what I always said was, we can't have one. Because a conversation has a couple criteria. One, both people are given equal dignity for their perspective. Two, both people are listened to. And three, we're actually trying to find a consensus of truth and reality that we can land on so we can adjust ourselves to find solutions. Well, we don't get that anymore. And one of the reasons we can't is because as a white guy, because I'm the oppressor,
here it comes.
I'm the bad guy. I'm it. I did it. If I'm white, I'm Christian, I'm heterosexual, I'm male, and I'm a conservative. So if your life is screwed up, it's my fault. That's all I know.
That's a lot, man. That's a lot.
That's a lot. I know. I'm surprised you're still standing after all that. But here's
hold on, Brad.
I know. I'll send you. We'll send you some paddles. You can restart your heart. But the whole idea that if I, as a white person, if we want to start taking ludicrous categories, because nobody ever says that's a higher mountain and that's a lower mountain. It's like, hey, they're both mountains. They're interesting. They're beautiful. They got their own. No, let's categorize everybody and tribalize everybody. Well, guess what? The reason that there are tribes is because people feel comfortable amongst people that are more like-minded. That's not something inherently wrong about that. It's just like if I try to walk into a conversation and I'm told that I'm a racist simply because I look a certain way, why would I hang out with that tribe? Well, they clearly don't like me.
Let's talk about that concept for just a second. So the idea there is that there are things that make you more comfortable, right?
Right.
And so you join a tribe because this is comfortable. Now, I'll say this. You've got kids. I've got 4 sons, all boys, as I like to tell people. And I tell my sons, I'm going to put you in uncomfortable situations. I tell them, when you meet somebody, get up, look them in the eye, shake their hand firmly. I tell them, we're going to go here and, oh, Dad, whatever. And you can see the discomfort. I remember the first time I took my youngest son to school, his mom would take him and it would take an hour for her to get home. I go, what are you doing? She says, you want to get out of the car, and she would coax him out. So she had to take a trip. She says, you need to take him to school. So on the way to school, I said, hey, buddy, we're going to get out of this car. From the moment we drive up, I'm going to walk on campus with you. We're going to meet a few little friends, and now I'm going to go. And this is the way it's going to be every day. And I went out, got in a little school in St. Louis, got out of the car. All these little black kids running up to me because they don't have daddy, so they probably thought I was their dad. But they're running up to me and having a good time. And I'm like, you guys know my kid? That's my boy right there. So he sees me in a comfort, being comfortable. Never again did his mom have to spend an hour talking him out of it. So here's what I'm getting at. If you're uncomfortable in situations, it's because you're a child. People haven't exposed you to that thing. I don't mean it in a like you're just a generic child, but I can make anybody uncomfortable. I can take you to Compton and make you uncomfortable. But if somebody introduces you and you get a level of comfort, you're no longer uncomfortable. I know white guys that used to come play dominoes with me, eat chitlins, and hang out with my family that are as comfortable around black folks as other black folks. I know black folks who have zero comfort in the hood where I grew up. But when they learn it, when they're taught it, when you get over that childlike idea of the discomfort, That's when you can. That's why I honestly believe part of my success is I don't care where you drop me. I'm going to use my personality, and I'm not going to, I know it's going to be uncomfortable. I don't know Polish. So if you drop me in Poland, I'm going to struggle a little bit, but I'm going to have a smile on my face, and I'm going to go, hey, I'm American, and I'm going to do it in such a way that you bring me in. So to have that discourse, you have to have a level of comfort. And I think what leftists do is they will not allow for that comfort. We as conservatives are, I will say any minute, if you don't know something, I don't know that. Please explain that. Tell me about it. I want to get comfortable with the subject.
Right.
I don't care what it is.
Right.
Leftists will not do that.
Right. No, you're absolutely right. And let me make a point about what you just said, because it's a true story, and it's simple, but it makes a point about comfort and our ability to try to grow as a nation. And the only way we can do that is to be able to be ignorant about somebody else's experiences and not be in some ways considered a racist or insensitive simply because I don't necessarily understand your background. How would I know? I don't know anything about West Virginia, Appalachian, backwoods white people. No idea about their culture. It ain't like mine. They look like me, but it ain't the world that I grew up in. So why would I just suddenly integrate because of my melanin color? It has nothing to do with my ideas. As I said in one of my monologues, color has never accomplished anything in human history. Ideas have, and they just happen to be housed in a flesh that has a different hue. So one thing that happened to me years ago was I was reading, I don't remember where it was, but I was either reading it or heard somebody, but I think it was a white person, but they were talking something about a friend or somebody that was black, and they were discussing something, and they said something to the effect, I don't remember the context exactly, but they said, how did they get their teeth so white? Black people. And he said, and then I realized this was a racist construct, because this is the same caricature that used to be made out of cartoons, out of black people, where they had the really dark black skin, black, actual black, not even the color you actually are. And then they'd make super white teeth, maybe big lips, red lips, to make a character, a cartoon out of somebody,
right?
And give them the real white. And what they said was, I realized, was the contrast between your teeth and a darker face gives the illusion of whiter. Right. Okay, so I read all this, right, Kevin? And I remember thinking to myself, I thought, how did they do? I just thought they had really good teeth. I thought, I don't know how you all make your teeth so it had nothing to do with the race. I didn't sit there and break down, oh, I wonder if it's the melanin count that's given this fact, this illusion. I didn't look at it like somehow I've made a stereotype out of some cartoon character from 1935. All I knew was I saw some guy with some white teeth. That was amazing to me. I wish I could do that. There was nothing inherently racist. Actually, it was an accolade I was given. How do you all do that? And that can be construed and twisted into some kind of evil, dark, insensitive, bigoted perspective when I would have thought of it complimentary. So talk to me. And again, this is the conversation that actually can cure America somewhat. Black and white guy just talking like normal humans trying to figure some crap out. So when you told me you grew up in Texas with a bunch of white guys, you're telling me you experienced nothing, none of those guys ever called you a racist name. You never sensed anything at all.
Not one time.
And if that's true, the only thing that we can assess about that is your parents. The people that you grew up with had to give you some parameters as to how they expected you to engage people, and then they kind of let you at it. So do you feel like were raised by people that didn't give you anything but an expectation to be a man and be honorable, and then let the chips fall where they may? Is that kind of how you got your perspective?
Yeah, so just a little background. My mom died right before I turned 5. And my father was in prison. And so I was raised by my grandparents.
Okay. And my black, I'm guessing.
Yeah, they were also black.
Okay, that helps.
So anyway, we moved to this ranch, and in Brady, Texas, is a little cattle town, dead center of Texas, and they were the people who ran the ranch, which we were about 15 miles outside of town, which is a town of less than 6,000 people. But I can tell you a quick story. So we go to that town on the very first day. My grandfather's on the ranch taking care of getting set up. My grandmother, we have to grocery shop because we did all the parties for this family. So we're in this grocery store, Max Shan's Grocery, and we've loaded up tons of groceries. I mean, we have $1,500 worth of groceries because we're outfitting the whole ranch for these big parties. And 4 black kids come in. My brother and I, my grandmother are black, obviously, and we're going through the store. Loading up. We have 4 baskets. My brother and I are dragging, pushing them. My grandmother's got one, and she's just like, get this, get that, get this, get that. And so these 4 black kids come in, and the checkers, 2 white ladies, Betty's the one I remember because we became good friends, literally stop and fold their arms, people waiting to check out, and they watch these kids get candy in the candy aisle. And they had it to where the checkers could look right down the aisle and see the candy. So the black kids are down there and they're looking up, to see if anybody's watching them. And we're watching this play out. And I'm telling you, it was frozen. Nobody moved. Nobody complained in the checkout line. Like, what's this about? It was like everybody knew to just stop. So fast forward about a year or 2 later, I see these kids because we went to a different school. I see these kids out and about, maybe at the park. And I say to them, I remember when we saw you guys for the first time. Y'all came in the Max Shan's grocery store, and those checkers folded their arms and started watching that candy aisle. And Bobby, who's one of my good friends, he's a cop to this day. He goes, yeah, man, we used to steal candy from that store all the time. So when I start telling that story, people start thinking racism. But when I finish the story, they figure out, no, it was how they behaved. So to your point, I was raised to behave. I was raised as a good kid. The reason why I never experienced any type of racism was because I didn't act like a clown. Now some of these other black kids, the ones who used to steal from stores, I can bet you money that they were called everything but a child of God. But not one time in my entire existence, from 2nd grade, age 8 years old, to the time my family left that town, did I experience 1 ounce of racism.
Well, and I'm glad, but it certainly is not the narrative that the media portrays. It's such a great conversation we're having.
Yeah, but the media is not portraying that, Brad, because to tell somebody that if you're a person of character, life will treat you fairly, life will do right, is one thing. To create a victim, because what most people want is they want to hear the story. So I'll tell you another quick story that I told with a group. I was on a leftist radio show because they were like, you're too chicken to come on. I said, no. So it was a lesbian lady, a gay guy, and 2 lefties and me. I mean, I'm talking solid lefties, vehemently leftists. And then a black, one of the women was a black leftist woman. So we're talking about various issues. And I made a couple observations I'll make about this. But one was, I said, well, I lived in St. Louis at the time. And I said, one of my kids was coming home at 3 o'clock in the morning from Union Station. And he got 2 houses down from my house. And the cops stopped him. And they throw him up against the car. And they're like, what are you doing over here? You man? Because I lived in a pretty rough area. I mean, it was being gentrified, but it was a rough area, especially that time of night. A lot of murders. So they're like, where are you coming from? And they had him up against the car with his handcuffs in and all that. And he's like, I'm coming from Union Station. And it was a black cop. He goes, well, you don't run from Union Station at this time of night. He's like, boy, you, and he's lecturing him. So immediately all the lefties are like, see, man, that's what they do to black kids. And I said, no, this was my white adopted French son who got stopped. And then they're like, oh, and I go, yeah. See, cops in that neighborhood know crime. And they were telling him Doesn't matter who you are, crime will hit you in the city. But immediately everybody thinks he's a black kid getting roused by a cop. No,
Yeah.
he was a white kid
Right.
getting
Well,
told.
that's great. Well, that's good
Well,
that you set it up that way, because it allows them to have their prejudgment and then have it exposed for what it is. But here's the thing, Kevin. Every single human being has a presuppositional worldview. We all live by morals and standards that we think are true, and that's how we live the world. And there is a price to pay, one way or the other, for the repercussions of the way we live our lives. We're planting seeds in the way we live, how we act. That doesn't mean you're not going to have somebody misuse or abuse you, even if you've been kind. That happens all the time because evil exists. But what I'm curious about, and I'm sure a lot of my people, my listeners or viewers or fans here might
the Church
find,
of Brad.
Yeah, the Church of Brad is this. So, as a black conservative Christian American, you have a unique vantage point, because you kind of get to see things from a lot of angles that I don't. I have some things in common with you. I got most things in common with you, except my skin color. But that is what it is. And that does have a perspective about how people perceive you or the world in general, whether we like it or not. It simply does. I mean, if you see somebody that's 6'9", you're going to stare at them. That's odd. There's ways that people look that cause us to sort of prejudge what we think we're looking at based on how we see the world. But what we do know is this, and this is better than anybody with your Fox experience, is that the media is maybe the single most culpable group in America in destroying continuity and unity and the potential for us to find something homogenous to unite together and fight together as Americans, as one with unique differences. They seem to have an agenda to divide and to seek out those stories that fit the narrative that whites oppress, blacks or minorities are the oppressed, and the whites are oppressors, and they seek out those stories and they create those stories, and they'll put those stories out before.
Okay, I was going to say I was going to correct you. They don't seek them out; it's manufactured.
Okay. So here's what. I agree. But here's a question that I wonder if you have an answer to. Clearly, most of the editors, most of the owners, most of the CEOs of media companies, those who do the senior editors of these disseminations of information groups are white. Usually they're white. What do they have at stake? What is the goal that these people have to drive this narrative with oftentimes manufactured lies about this? What do you feel they have at stake, or they think is important, that they are willing to completely corrode what was once a somewhat noble profession of simply disseminating news and letting people try to figure out what was going on, and they've killed it.
So let's look at the media for what it really is, and I'm gonna segue that into education as well. So we think media is about getting information out and getting the truth out. That's what we're taught. That's what you believe. That's what we hope that it's about. That's the last thing that media is about. Media is a business. It is a manufacturing business. And I want you to understand, what if everything were going well? How much media would you actually look for? And I'm going to give you the answer. Very little. You would be like, the world is good. I don't need to read anything. And you'll read a few feel-good stories and you'll go, I'm done. This is wonderful. The world as I know it is done. The thing that keeps people coming back is, it's kind of like when the first time I ate, I think they called it salted caramel. This girl, a friend of mine's wife, made salted caramel. And she's like, yeah, it's going to be caramel. And I sprinkle salt on the top. And I'm like, ugh. And she goes, trust me, you're going to like it. The salt gives it its flavor. And sure enough, salted caramel, I loved it. It was one of the best desserts I ever ate. And I'm looking at these chunks of salt going, no way. And it was. If they make perfume, they've made the most glorious perfumes in the world. And I talked to a perfume maker. He says, Kevin, every great perfume must have a little bit of stinky, musk or something. If it doesn't, it will not sell. And so he told me it has to have that. Media is the same way. And what they do is take this, what they think is good, and they go, now we have to give it a little bit of perversion or something, some stinky, so you'll want to come and check it out. And that's what they're in the job of. But let me transfer that into education, because this happened to me when I was getting my fellowship. We went to go talk to a professor, because me and Joseph Phillips of The Cosby Show were doing a fellowship. And I went to talk to a professor, and he said, I wouldn't have let you guys in here if I'd known you were conservatives. And I said to his class, see, I have no problem if you call yourself a liberal or a leftist or progressive, whatever. I still want to debate you, have you come in, learn from you if that's possible. So you're welcome to come. And I said, I invite your professor to come because I'll show you why you should get your money back for this class. So he shows up to my fellowship and he stands over in the corner and he starts asking me some question. I mean, this took him a month, but he finally showed up and he says, so Kevin, you're blaming the situation for the Black community on Democrats. And I finally, after it took him 2 minutes to get to the question, I said, yes. And he had a little back and forth, but here's what I finally told him. I said to the students, your professor doesn't realize he's in the manufacturing business. He thinks of this as education. He's in the manufacturing business, the same way media is manufacturing. I want you to think of it differently from now on. I said, they manufacture minds. Now, you can come out whole and with a complete spherical understanding of the world, looking at things from all different perspectives, or you can come out with one point of view. He doesn't even understand he's in a manufacturing environment. And I said, now I'm going to make you a bet. He's never even worked outside of academia. And I look at him and he's like this. And I said, look at him. He's proudly telling you he's never worked outside of academia. I've worked in multiple fields. I've been through 5,000 companies, manufacturing, distribution, service-oriented, retail, restaurant, you name it, I've done it. So I have a pretty good worldview of the manufacturing, distribution, and service environment. He's in manufacturing. Now, what do they tell you about you in manufacturing that he calls education? Most of you, if you're 20% of you are not going to get out of the manufacturing part, it's called high school. If you look like me, 30% of you are not going to get out of the factory. Now, when you get to college, they brag about the manufacturing environment and how many of you will not get through the factory. They measure themselves on it. We are higher standards in this one because more of you will not make it through the manufacturing plant. I said, now let's think about that from a business perspective. No manufacturing plant brags about how little of the product makes it to the end of the product line. So the only reason why I'm telling you this story is this. When you think of business the way that the media has taught us to think about it, or academia has taught us to think about it, you're already warped. Media is in the business of getting you to show up. They outlaw so-called clickbait, but that's exactly what a headline is. It is nothing more. If you look at the Washington Post or the New York Times, it is little more than clickbait. The first paragraph is a little less clickbait. You have to get to the meat of the story to, if there is any truth at all, to find that little morsel of truth. Maybe that's just salt or the sugar, depending on how you look at it. But that's what you have to get to. That's insanity. And that's how we've been taught to think.
Well, that's a very interesting and eye-opening way of seeing media that I think I've not ever heard it said that way. It's great. Essentially, they're creating a product and they're selling a product and they're manufacturing. It can be a bike or an engine, or in this case, I guess they're selling what? Ideology? Are they selling a bias? Are they
Yes.
selling your point of, what are they selling me when they sell me a particular point of view in an article?
So think about back in the day of Walter Cronkite. Remember when a retraction was almost, I mean, it was so rare to get a retraction in a story. The level of execution on that story, but that was because people at the time wanted truth. The media saw the manufacturing of truth was the what drove it. And there became a flip where people figured out, particularly politicians, that we can set narratives. And not only that, the attention span of people is so short, they won't even care if it's a lie. We'll gloss it over. It'll be page 16. By the time we correct it, it'll be gone. So now the majority of news it's certainly slanted if it's not a blatant lie. So let's use some examples. Russian collusion. How many papers bought into it, said 51 ex-DOJ officials have authenticated that Hunter Biden's laptop was Russian misinformation? They said how many people told us that Russian collusion by Trump was reality? We had a sitting congressman that said he had absolute irrefutable truth. This is Adam Schiff, that Trump was colluding with the Russians. They made up Alpha Bank as part of the story. They lied in FISA court applications, etc. And in every step along the way, the media played along. Now, in the old days, any investigative reporter would have been happy to break that story, because breaking that story would have been the thing that got him his Pulitzer. But now going along with that story is what got him his Pulitzer. Remember the expose of Project Veritas, where the guy that won a Pulitzer Prize said he was complicit in spreading the misinformation of the Russian collusion, for which the New York Times and Washington Post won Pulitzer Prizes. Has anybody taken away those Pulitzer Prizes that these journalists, I use my finger quotes, won? No, there's no ramification for spreading the lie, because the media is telling you, if you look at it smartly, we are in the business of manufacturing news. I don't care what you think. I don't care if it's right. I'm still going to get the awards. There's no ramification for me getting it wrong. So why would I change it?
Is there a financial, do you think this is more financially driven or ideologically driven? Because if you look at Twitter, if you look at Facebook, if you look at New York Times, all once pretty well respected groups of information dissemination who are clearly left-leaning now. We all know that. We know they're biased. We know they censor concern. That's not even up for grabs. We didn't have to discuss it. It's so clear. Right. Well, in some respects, Kevin, they're losing money, right? I mean, wouldn't it be better to have conservative voices on there, if for no other reason than for them to refute or to mock or to make fun of, but at least draw eyeballs so they can make some money by people wanting to be on their platform. So what happens when the manufacturing company is losing money? Does it not matter? Are they being subsidized by some nefarious group? And I'm not going to mention China because that'd be too obvious.
So you nailed it. So here's the thing, and this is the thing that people have trouble understanding. Look at academia. Is academia losing money? The technical answer is yes. You can't operate where I want your people to understand this. 60% of blacks do not finish a 6-year college program.
Excuse me.
We are the least likely to graduate college. And when we leave, we carry the most debt of any ethnic group. Now, in any other form, in any other place, that would be considered racist. Think about that. I mean, if I want to play the Democrats game, I'd say 60% of black people don't even get through college and then they carry the most debt. Yeah. And by the way, the least qualified to go in because they've lowered the standards. So it's an obvious cause and effect. If I go in with lower standards, I'm likely to leave. I'm more likely to drop out. So you have that. But then as a general rule, just education in general, 73% of the people who graduate with their degrees don't use them. So that's a pretty good condemnation of the institution. So just taking those two facts, you would say to yourself, how could you possibly survive? How could you possibly get by? Well, let me tell you, Brad, your money, your white people money. They take that money and they say, Brad, I'm going to charge you for your home. I don't care if your kids go to school, you homeschool them, they graduated or whatever. From the moment you start making money and buy a home to the moment you die, I'm going to take that money and I'm going to give it to academia. Academia is failing, but we still give it to them, so we subsidize it. Now you say about the media. Why do you think Jeff Bezos bought the Washington Post and put billion? He said, I don't even care if you lose money. Destroy Trump. Do you think that the New York Times doesn't have a big sugar daddy? You think that the CNN, how long can you go? Can you report bad news? Can you have bad ratings and continue to operate? Well, look at the NFL. The NFL is woke. They've been literally in triage for the few decades, but guess what they have? They have a big fat TV contract that's on cable. You know how they can have that contract? Because the cable companies set up a cabal where the money gets pumped into these cable channels, whether you watch a channel or not. The logo channel, for example, it's a conglomerate, and all that money comes in, and all they have to do is dole it out. And who do they dole it out to? The most woke organizations. So our money feeds the beast in every way, because there is no way it would survive on its own. And that's why when we talk about the tour, the Unapologetically American tour, we have to fund ourselves on our own. But let me tell you, truth will get out and people will fund this because they'll see it for what it is. They'll see it for its real value, for its truth, and it will find a way. Now, we could go the other way. I could, if I wanted to fund this tour the way leftists are, Brad, you and I would be buying mansions and sailing around in yachts, because I could easily play the race card, flip all of the comedy into something against conservatism, and we would be feasting, we would be rolling in other people's money.
Yeah. Yeah, well, and you're absolutely right. And one of the reasons I wanted to interview you, not only because you're a great guest and an intellectual and a needed voice in America, I wanted my people to know about this tour, because, as you know, each one of us, Tim Wilkins, who was the guy that actually opened for Bob Saget right before the day he died, so he's been around forever, great guy, very funny, and has opened for major acts, but conservative, and for the first time, I guess, has begun to inculcate some of his comedy with more of his values, which he didn't used to do. You, of course, have been pretty unapologetic from the get-go about who you are and what you stand for, and I'm sure have taken very specific hits, unique to it's interesting because when you look at wokeism, when you look at CRT, and you look at this sort of way that they have processed who is the most oppressed, intersectionality they call it, where they give you certain points based on your oppression scale. So you've got a couple extras, you're conservative and you're black, but in this case it's flipped on its head, that you literally become white in their eyes. Sure. And they do that with a straight face. It is the most clouded, anti-intellectual, anti-logic, which they now call racist, logic and reason. But what else could they do, Kevin? If I can't compel you with ideas and truth, I have to make ideas and truth broken. I have to make them racist. I have to make them evil, because I certainly am not going to win the day with 2 + 2 is 4, because I believe it's 2 + 2 is fish.
It's fluid.
Yeah.
Yeah, it can be whatever it wants to be.
Well, let me ask you this then, as we get ready to close, and I'm going to have you on more. First off, our people, my people, and it's what I've been trying to tell them from the get-go when I started this podcast. I said, I'm not interested in starting a podcast where I say, aren't conservatives the ones that really understand it? Aren't those leftists crazy? Can you imagine those atheists? What would happen if a conservative said that? Why, they would have done that. And all we do is repeat the same nonsense we've already bought into. I said, I'm not interested in that. There's plenty of guys smarter than me, richer than me, that already have that locked up, that point of view. What I said was, if I can't speak about true ideas about America, about my faith, about my conservative values, but give some practical ways to fix things, what's the point? If somebody doesn't try to change things and actually give people some tools and some weaponry as to how to go into the culture and change their sphere of influence, we're going to lose our country. There's nothing left to talk about. We're going to lose it. If we can't change academia from taking the next generation of Americans and turning them into Marxists, we're not going to survive. We can't. So
well, let me do this real quick. I want to interrupt and tell people, you mentioned how we met. We met because I'd seen you on Fox News, and I said to myself, this guy is one of the best thinkers I've ever seen. And I still believe that. And because it's a true story. And I'm not saying it because I'm on your show. I've said this to many people. I've said you, outside of the comedy, which I think your comedy is spectacular, which is why we're obviously on tour together. But I said, Brad is one of the deepest, most amazing thinkers, because what I like is that your thought makes other people think. It's not just, here's my thought, take it. It's no, you marinate on this and you figure this out. And it's usually from an angle that people haven't developed. So kudos on that. In terms of the solutions, the reason why I hope people feel the same way about me when I talked about media as manufacturing and education as manufacturing, that's what we're supposed to do. I want thought with purpose, and I want comedy with purpose. I want you to have to think about I tell people all the time, do you think in Africa anybody's worried about the whitening of Africa? We talk about the browning of America all the time. Has anybody ever in any of the 53 countries of Africa and the 2 that will form from wars when they split other countries in the next decade, do you think they will ever utter out of their mouths, what should we be concerned about the lightening of Africa? No, they're too busy with other things that really matter. They're not worried about homogeneity and how much percentage of Mexicans are this, or what is the ratio of women's incomes to men, things like this. We get so easily distracted by the left. I find it humorous. And that's where the comedy comes from, because I say to white folks, to your point, Brad, you say, Kevin, I can't say what you say because I'm white, and you know my routine in the comedy. I'm like, I wish I was white so I could prove to you guys just how white I would be. And so that's why I focus on those types of things. And to be honest with you, there's so much more out there. I got fired over a thing about women, as if women cannot be cruel and unjust and actually destructive in their children's lives and in the lives of men. And so we put people on pedestal. The women's movement want us to put women on pedestals. Well, all women do not deserve to be on a pedestal, and neither do all men, for certain. So for us to point to these inconsistencies and to say to people, stop feeling like you owe the world something because somebody says, oh, Brad, you're white and you're male, so you've got toxic masculinity and rape culture. And oh, by the way, you've got your foot on the neck of all minorities and women. That's utterly ridiculous. The only people that you should apologize to or feel anything about are the people that you've actually impacted in your life. And don't try to put me in some group of people, black in this case, male in this case, or whatever you choose, and then tell me, here's all the ills of what men do. And Kevin, you have to carry that burden. I carry Kevin's burdens. That's it. So I think that part of our lesson has to be, and my joke about I wish I were white, is that I truly do. Because I would show white people that I'm not going to apologize for my birthright. That's silly. Any more than I would apologize for my shoe size. And one thing you brought up earlier, you talked about tall people, like you notice people that are tall. Imagine for a second if tall people carried the burden of black people. Just juxtapose that and ask yourself, what would the world be like if every tall person you saw, you thought voted Democrat, didn't have a certain amount of education, was likely to go to prison, was having children out of wedlock and all that? What would we think about them? Then you start to be able to put things into perspective about how silly is that?
Yes.
Do all tall people play basketball? What are the questions they get asked? So we have an intellectual curiosity is not just as regular comedians, because I don't put myself in that category. I put myself in a category as an intellectual person who can make you laugh, because I'm going to show you the level of stupid that you don't even question. And by the way, that's what gravitated me to you. was that biblical, conservative common sense that made people just go, oh, I would have never thought of it that way. That's what you're looking for. And that's what you gave me.
Well, I appreciate that, brother, and ditto to you. And it's so important that we as conservatives, Christians, and you don't have to be a Christian, but obviously to join our our tribe. But we do need those who care about freedom, free speech, religious liberties. I've always said this. The first line of the First Amendment is about religious liberties, which are by far the most important liberty a culture can have, because that's your conscience rights. That's the one that says, here's how I see the world, and I want to be left alone to think that way in public and private, by the way, which is the most crucial thing. Now, what I do in private, who cares? I can do anything. If I can't do it in public, it ain't free. And that's what's most crucial. Kevin, what do you think is the best way, as I let you go, that we can inspire our people to create I started using this term, the militia of the mind, where we're going to outthink these people. We're going to out-philosophize them. We're going to outstand for them. We're going to out-courageous them. We're going to out-virtue them, because we're going to actually stand for actual virtue, not pretend signaling. So as we move this across to different states, the Unapologetically American Tour, I feel like let's create sort of a consensus of militias of the mind, of folks in those vicinities that begin to contact their churches, contact their conservative groups, contact their political affiliates, contact their Moose Club, whatever it is, and start saying, and this is going to sound self-serving, but it isn't, we got to go support these guys and show up. And you're going to think, well, of course you're saying that. You want to sell out a bunch of tickets and make a lot of money. I do want to make a lot of money. I'm a capitalist, but that's not why I want people to come. I want them to come because it's going to give them a sense of community, a sense of free speech. It still exists in America. Here's what it feels like. Here's what it looks like. And in the context of a comedy club, all bets are off. And why is that important? Because if there's no perimeters, that's right, no perimeters to speech, then freedom reigns. Does that mean that I want to go around, and here's what they always accuse me of, oh, you just want to go backwards and say the N-word and be homophobic and blah, and all these terms they use because they have no substance. I say, I don't want to do any of those things, but I want those things to exist because that means freedom exists. The only way free speech exists in a culture is if you allow speech you hate to exist. It's the only way it's going to work. So is there a way that we can contact these people and that they can get onto a mailing list or some way where they can say, I'm on board when you make it to Missouri, when you make it to Florida, when you make it to Texas, we're going to be boots on the ground. We're going to bring a crowd, and we are going to show America from a grassroots perspective that we will not be silenced. We're going to show up to these events. We're going to laugh together. We're going to think together. And then we're going to go out warriors into the marketplace of ideas. What would you think is the best way that they can sign up and say, how can we help fill these seats?
So right now, the tour is featured on my website, thekevinjacksonnetwork.com/comedy. And it's the Unapologetically American Comedy Tour, not just tour, Brad, comedy tour. Because it is comedy, but it's comedy with a purpose. And I think what people have to understand, and you've pretty much capsulized it, I won't take a lot of time on it, but this is bigger than comedy. You'll have a great time. And Brad, you remember when we did the Reparations Comedy Tour, you came off stage and said it was so freeing to just speak the truth and not have to wonder, is it on this side or that side? Funny is funny.
And this is me even having worked a lot of churches. I mean, people that I love, Christians and people, but even there, you've got to be so careful.
So
and not that I would want to say something, but it's always this idea of tiptoeing something. And what makes comedy great is when there's no leashes, there's no fences, and then beautiful, amazing things can come out of it. I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I just want to let you people know.
And that's what happened. Yeah. I mean, you were on a roll when we opened in Scottsdale. But what I would say to folks is this: yes, if you do not support what we're doing here, your children and grandchildren may very well be silenced at some point. It's bigger than just the comedy. This is about saying what we want to say. And by the way, This is a clean comedy environment. So you're not going to hear a bunch of F-bombs, and we're not, talking about all kinds of crazy nonsense that you might hear in other comedy shows. But that's why I call it's intellectual comedy with a purpose, but it's not so highbrow that you feel like you need to, brush up on your English to do it. But at the same time, you get it. And I promise you, you will get it at a guttural level, even no matter what your politics are. If you put politics aside, you would still love what you see here. And I think that the fact that we do the bar stool afterwards is a comedy show in and of itself. So you really end up getting two shows. Now, how do people do it? You go to the website, thekevinjacksonnetwork.com/comedy. Donate if you want to support it. If it's going to come to your area and you've got a group of people, let us know. We'd love to work with a group of people. If you want to sponsor it, we have a sponsor packet on the site, so you can sponsor it. And we also like to get radio participation. We need a good radio market, so Brad and I and Tim can go on and yuck it up with the different hosts. But I'm going to tell you, I believe God has ordained this to be a good thing, because we got a lot of things working for it. And I know that once people see it, they'll get it. They'll say, you know what? I'm going to be less apologetic about who you are. You cannot live a truly purposeful life if you are always hiding behind something or feel like you can't be who you genuinely are. And I say this all the time, and I'll leave it with this. I meet people all the time, and I have such a good radar of whether, and I'm not going to say I'm always right, but I've learned over my many years on this planet to know that guy's a fake. That woman's a fake. And I've learned it because I know the people that have their mask, what they want to show you, and who they really are. And what I say about the true conservatives, people like Brad, I hope about myself and many others, is what you see is what you get. I'm not going to cut any. This is the way I am, whether we're having dinner in your living room or at a restaurant or whatever. And I think that genuineness is what certainly Christian conservatism, and I believe conservatism brings. And if you don't feel free to have that fun, I used to tell people, I'm the guy, if you got a zit on your forehead, I'm going to go, hey, Brad, who's your friend? I'm that guy. But it means that we love each other, and I can joke with you that way. That's what we have to get back to, where we can communicate with each other in seriousness and fun and anger and all the different emotions that God gave us.
Amen. Well, God bless you, Kevin. You are fighting the good fight. It's a pleasure and honor to be with you. And so you guys go ahead, get on his website, see what we're up to. But again, I'm literally serious. We're going to have to begin to create our own warriors of just regular citizens coming to these events. If people can go, millions of people went to see Trump because they felt like the guy was at least standing up for America. That's what we're doing. But the good news is you're going to be entertained, and bring somebody that's kind of ambivalent about conservatism, where maybe they are more left-leaning. And I don't mean to torture them, because they're going to say, hey, we are funny, we are interesting, we are sophisticated, but maybe, just maybe, they might remember what America was and could be. And that's what Kevin and I are here to do, and so many others. We will fight and go down as warriors trying to defend this nation, which is still the greatest nation the world has ever known. And that's what we're shooting for. God bless you, brother. Obviously, I'm going to have you on more as we get closer to some dates that are coming up.
To do it, man.
But there's so much more to talk about too. Yeah. God bless you, brother. Take care. Thank you so much. Okay. I appreciate it, buddy. Thank you. All right, Wyatt, we're going.
So I guess let me get back on the big screen and get off the little one. I hope you enjoyed that. Wyatt, why would I ask him I hope they enjoyed that? How could they not enjoy that, Wyatt? That was amazing. That was so exciting for them, and they were enthralled. They were transfixed. Wyatt, they were absolutely immersed in some genius talk about two men, one black, one white, and one crystal clear, who unfortunately, since the camera didn't pick him up, didn't get to say much. And he didn't have a mic either, so he really was redundant. We won't use him anymore. Remind me not to invite the crystal clear guy.
I'll check him out right now, actually.
Yeah. Can you? Yeah, I think that's not him. That's the ghost. No, he's
that's the ghost of our streams past.
Of our streams past that completely screwed up. Folks, I hope you enjoyed that. That was Kevin Jackson. Go watch his podcast on the Blackosphere. He was also, you probably recognize him. He was on Fox for quite a while as a personality that they would bring on and make these comments. But the biggest thing that I wanted you guys to see is truth and reality and freedom and free speech is absolutely essential for us to have any chance at redeeming this nation and recovering our freedom and our ability to be cohesive as a nation. And truth is the only shot we have. Keep in mind, CRT believes that there is no such thing as truth. It's postmodern, as well as the idea of criticizing everything that is Western. So that's why they don't believe in logic. They believe it's a white construct. They believe that their storytelling, their perspective, from their perspective, is equally valid, even if it doesn't in any way correlate to reality, because it's their personal subjective perspective. Now, I know that sounds a little odd, but that's exactly what's being taught. And yes, it's being taught in school. Yes, it's become part of the woke corporations. It is a cancer, and it is masticating fast. Masticizing fast, not masticating, it's not chewing. Well, it is chewing stuff up, but it is masticizing fast, and it's destroying the host. So we are going to be out there doing a live event, Unapologetically American tour, that's going to allow you to go see clean comedy, but it's going to be hard-hitting, it's going to be in your face, and we're going to talk about these ideas and find out how we can go back into our communities and fight back to retrieve America. This is not going to be easy, because they have the institutions of learning. They have the networks that disseminate information. They have the technocracies like Facebook that I'm on right now, and Google, and YouTube, and Twitter, and Instagram, and they run it, and they simply say, you're not talking, and they cut you off. This is what is happening. We all know it. I don't have to tell you that. But how do you circumvent it? How do you fight it? Well, who knows? Maybe God throws us a bone now and again and has Elon Musk buy Twitter and says, I'm putting it on. Maybe Hillary has discovered that she did approve of this dissemination of this false information, and maybe, just some crazy out of the blue that she's held accountable and is punished in some way. So people find out that there's a cost for lying. There's a cost for deceit. There's a cost for trying to destroy somebody with false information. There's a cost that everybody has to pay until we begin to decide what maybe, just maybe, we should not necessarily have to agree with each other, but at least agree that we all need equal access to the table of ideas. This is what I'm trying to do. For all of my friends out there who have been doing and watching my podcast for a long time now, you're watching the growth of something into a TV show that I didn't expect, as I've said on many occasions. If you want to see live events, if you want to see me do my own personal live events where I work oftentimes in churches and talk about these ideas about truth and reality, and for those of you who maybe aren't Christians and you thought, I never thought they were worth listening to, and perhaps I intrigue you. Maybe there's a perspective that I have about faith that you want to come to. Well, you can come see me, and if you want to support that to God's Comic Ministries, then you can just ask for a link, and I'll send you a link, and it's a 501c3, and it helps me go out and work for places that don't have money to bring me in, and it allows me to fight this fight for America, for freedom, for First Amendment rights and privileges for all Americans, even those, especially those perhaps, that I disagree with, because then it proves that I actually believe in freedom. And I can prove that and not be a hypocrite by actually living it the way I said. Folks, I thank you for coming on. Next week, we're going to talk about the Saturday Night Live character and show clips of him talking about me. But we're also going to find other ways to fight together. I'm looking now and have been trying to talk to some folks about getting some t-shirts, probably make some mugs, and we're going to start creating a way for people that can subscribe to what I'm doing, and we're going to build an army of militias of the mind, and we're going to see if we can in fact do everything we could to know that we tried to keep America free and true and strong and valuable to the culture, to our lineage, to our kids and our grandkids. Thanks, White. I'm glad you came on and did what you always do, pushed a button and had a funny little insight here and there, and then, of course, you dozed off to sleep.
I mean, it's just so tiring trying to talk over you when you go on and on and on about whatever random topic floats in that head of yours.
Mm-hmm. He's always talking about me going on and on and on, and yet that's how he got rich, by me bringing him on staff for the Brad Stine Has Issues show. Remember, folks, my job is to put the woke back to sleep. Remember this, PC free is liberty. And go forth and fight. And if you can't do that, put a helmet on and slam it down tight. For the rest of us, we got work to do. Let's do some damage for the kingdom while the kingdom is still waiting to return. God bless you, folks. See you next Monday. Give. Let's do some damage. God bless.